Once upon a time, there was a very special building filled with people who did very special things called Proteomics, which did a lot of good for the world. But it seemed there were only two ways of getting things done. One from the bottom up and the other from the top down. And so the building was divided into two very distinct groups, the bottom-ups and the top-downs. In one group was Fred, a proteomics researcher who was a real bottom-up kind of guy. Fred worked on the bottom floor of the lab. He buttoned his lab coat from the bottom up. He crafted his daily to-do list from the bottom up and loved taking the elevator up to the cafeteria for lunch. With Fred, everything was bottom up. Why? Because of the high-resolution separations and the ability to immediately ID hundreds of proteins, of course. But he had to sacrifice any hopes of high throughput. Now, way up at the top of the building was another proteomics researcher named Dave. Dave was a top-down guy. He worked on the top floor of the lab. He buttoned his lab coat from the top down. He checked his to-do list top to bottom. And he loved riding the elevator down to the cafeteria for lunch. With Dave, everything was top-down. Well, this was perfect since he was interested in answering more clinical questions that required larger numbers of samples. So he preferred using a method of biomarker discovery with a high-throughput, high-sensitivity approach. But alas, Dave still didn't have a good method to ID potential biomarkers. Still, both methods had their advantages and their raving fans. One day after lunch, both Fred and Dave entered the elevator and pushed their buttons at the exact same time. At that precise moment, the elevator shook a terrible shake. Fred and Dave looked at each other with fear and wonder, and that's when something totally unexpected happened. The elevator door opened on a floor completely unknown to them. Now, Fred and Dave had always heard that the building was magical, but they'd never seen anything like this before. On this floor, there was no bottom-up and top-down camps, but rather just freedom. Freedom to do both methods of research, giving them the best of both worlds. It was called the Lucid Proteomics System. It was truly ingenious and combined the best of SELDI and TOF, enabling both approaches on one platform for maximum coverage of the proteome. Now that was magical. Fred and Dave realized in a flash that this was something far more useful and powerful than anything they'd ever dreamed of. It meant greater flexibility with experimental design and accelerating biomarker research programs. It meant easy and robust protein profiling across the entire mass range. And it also meant from that moment on, Fred and Dave could go to any floor to do their work. In short, it was smarter, from top to bottom and bottom to top. Soon, Dave and Fred won awards, published many papers and were doing exciting research that they'd never thought possible. And best of all, it gave Fred a new appreciation for the view from the top floor, while Dave became very good at doing up his lab coat from the bottom up. To see for yourself just what the new Lucid Proteomics system can do, or to find out more about it, talk to us or visit the website, and research happily ever after.